He is a senator from Oklahoma, the other state, along with Oregon that starts with an O. But it is one that is near, if not dear, to my heart. Oklahoma, just over the Red River border. And it is Senator Mark Wayne Mullen here on the Will Cain Show. What's up, Senator?
Yeah, so you get to eat crow now. We ate crow, a little bit before to your team. So I really don't have anything to say, not to mention my family is vertically challenged. So we wrestle. We don't play basketball. But I was really wanting to see the Mavs win just because if you're going to beat us, at least go all the way and finish it out and not get beat by Larry Bird's team. So whatever. I think that's worse, though. I'll just leave it setting there.
The us you're referring to. The us you're referring to being the Oklahoma City Thunder. That is always an interesting thing. Like after you have been vanquished, do you root for the person that beat you because it kind of makes you look better? At least we lost to the champion, or do you just keep hatred?
I go back to my
hatred in your heart.
Days. Yeah, I go back to my wrestling days and fighting days. If someone beat me, I wanted them to be the best. I don't want, because then I'm not the second best. I'm the third best or maybe the fourth best. So I want the guy who beats me in a wrestling tournament to go all the way. So the same thing here. I was rooting for the Mavs to go all the way, but you got beat by the green team. So I really do think that's worse. I mean, because you got to wear that green. I mean, what is sexy about that green, jersey you got to wear? I want a picture of that, Will. And by the way, every time we talk about you, we definitely talk about you being the big man. I mean, that's definitely how we describe you around here.
That's right. That's the goal. If you say it over and over and simplify it, it becomes reality. I've learned my lesson of history. I'm a big man. I'm the biggest man. By the way, you know what's sexy about that Celtics jersey? The only thing sexy about any basketball jersey is that it's more sexy than a singlet. I can think of nothing worse than the wrestling outfit.
If you got a body like mine, we make the singlet look good, man. You know that. It leaves nothing for imagination, right? People know exactly what they're getting. That's why my wife fell in love with me in high school. I mean, she knew exactly what she was getting.
Yeah, it's a singlet with some thin crust soled high tops. That's the best look there is, in sports. By the way, before we move on to news, now again, it's interesting, you being from Oklahoma and you being into wrestling. You haven't grown up just probably, 100 miles south of you, but on the right side of the Red River. Wrestling back in our age group, your my age group, wasn't really a thing. They might have had it like at, fancy private schools in Dallas where I right. now, send my kids to school. But they didn't have them like in Sherman, Texas, wrestling. And I saw a map. It's kind of interesting. It said the South, not the South, and kind of the South. It was on Instagram. And Oklahoma was grouped in with like Kentucky and West Virginia in kind of the South. If we're being real, like Texas is just kind of the South. But Oklahoma wrestling culture kind of illustrates you've got a healthy dose of Midwest to your culture. You're kind of Southern, you're kind of Western, and you're a little bit Midwest. Because when I think of wrestling, I think Nebraska, maybe the Dakotas, but into the Midwest, like Ohio, and I guess like Illinois. I just think of Rust Belt, Midwest, and dipping down and over into Nebraska and maybe a little of Oklahoma.
Well, one of the best teams out there right now is Pennsylvania. Penn State is like they're Penn State and everybody else, and Oklahoma State is right there. Which I got two boys that wrestle for Oklahoma State, one boy that wrestles for the University of Oklahoma. But one of the best high schools in the state or in the country consecutively over and over again is Allen, Texas. They have one of the best wrestling programs over and over and over again. Now they're kind of low right now, but they'll come back. And it's interesting because there is no universities in Texas that have wrestling either. So we recruit a lot of those guys. In fact, I've got a kid that's interning for me right now that he wrestles at Oklahoma University, and he graduated from Allen, Texas.
That is interesting. It's the geographic scrambling of sports is interesting. I can tell you lacrosse is getting big in Texas, and that's traditionally like a, Northeast and Maryland sport. But It's kind of interesting to see these sports. I hate to lose our regional differences. I actually like it. Before you know it, they're going to be playing water polo in Mississippi. I want you brought up Pennsylvania. It makes for a perfect transition. We talked about this last week, Senator, here on the Will Cain Show, as European Union governments in France and Germany elected governments representation in the European Union further to the right. It's presumed that the major guiding issue is migration, is illegal migration, is refugee migration, and the question is how big a role is that going to play in American politics? It played a massive role in 2016, probably the singular biggest role for the election of Donald Trump in 2016. The question is, how is it going to affect these, not just presidential elections in states like Michigan and Pennsylvania, but also the Senate races in those states? Do you think that Europe is serving as sort of a canary in the coal mine for what could just soon happen in America?
I think you absolutely are going to see that, and you see it also the way that the campaigns are shifting. Right, you see that President Trump is bringing in a lot of Hispanic votes, which isn't just immigrant, but however that the Hispanic vote is the fastest growing population in the United States. You can't find a construction site here anywhere in the country right now that you're not having Hispanics that are not just working there, but they're the foremans, and a lot of times now they're becoming the lead contractors on the site. You see that Trump is surging with that because the family traditional values, the strong religious background, the traditional values that the Hispanic population brings in. The Republican Party is really the party that's embracing that, and the Democrat Party is going away from it. But yet you're seeing actions taken by President Trump. I mean, just today he did an amnesty executive order, which is giving spouses of legal citizens here, or maybe not even citizens, they can just be NPRs. Or Biden. What did I say? Obama? Trump. Sorry.
You said Trump, but yeah, Biden's executive order. Yeah.
Thanks for the catch. That's why you're the big man, because you catch a little mistakes. So you see Biden that did the executive order today that gave illegal spouses amnesty to if they were married to illegal residents, and that residents could be in illegal permanent residence or a citizen. That's to try to block and try to get some of that Hispanic vote back. And so you've seen what's happened in Europe. Europe politics are not much different than us. And so I think without a question, I will bet you start seeing a lot of the debate will move towards that. I bet you'll probably see commercials that are being ran in Spanish. I would be willing to say that this could play a big role in a lot of the surrogates that's speaking for both candidates too, be it President Trump or President Biden at this point.
Real quick, you bring up debate, and we have our first debate next week. I think for a lot of us, we're sitting here wondering, how does Biden do this? There are going to be some rules put in place that make it easier for Biden to do this. But how does he do this when we see this trip he took in Europe, just physically, mentally, age-wise? How does he do this? Do you think, Senator, that what do you think the probability is that Joe Biden is the nominee for president from the Democrats? And I ask you that because I'm curious if your answer is 100% probability, or is there still some lurking possibility out there that it's somebody besides Biden?
All right, Will, you're going to take me down this flat earth conspiracy theory thing, right? So just hold with me a second. I think it's 50-50. And the reason why I say 50-50 really? Is I'll go back. I got to set just a little bit of it. I go back to where they did the investigation of his classified documents that he kept. You have the DOJ that's investigating it. The FBI made the lead. They sent out a report. The report starts talking really heavy about his cognitive behavior, which that had nothing to do with him having classified documentations or not. And then why would they release the cognitive behavior? Because that cognitive behavior could have been classified. It's the commander in chief, the president of the United States, the most powerful position in the world. You're letting all of our adversaries know that there's a cognitive health issue here. So that could have been classified. They could have redacted that from the public sector. So why'd they put that out there? I still am confused by that. And then you go back and you see that they've scheduled this debate, which is before any of the conventions. It's odd. I don't know if that's ever happened, that you have a presidential debate before either convention takes place. Will, you might have some people there that can research that. As far as I know, that's never happened in my lifetime. And so I would think they're still trying to see is if Biden can get a bump coming out of this because he's taken on so much water. You're seeing reports come out that he's behind in all these battleground states. You see Trump taking the fight straight to them. I mean, Trump is in San Francisco. Why? Bush didn't even go to San Francisco. So you're seeing a guy that walks into San Francisco and people are welcoming him and they're clapping for him and they're putting on a parade for him and he has a huge turnout. I mean, that's unusual, right? Same thing happened in Detroit, same thing happened in Las Vegas, and same thing happened when he was in New York. So I believe that the debate is to say, can we stop the bleed and can we get a bump? Now, go back, State of the Union, people had very low expectations from him. Now, I had a set in the State of the Union. It wasn't a pleasant setting, but honestly, he didn't do bad. You know, he was witty. He shot back at some comments that was in the crowd. He stayed on point. I'm not saying I liked what he had to say, but he definitely maneuvered like someone that was different than what you see when he's at the G7 summit or when you see him putting his forehead to the Pope. I don't get that one, but his behavior wasn't the same what we was expecting. I would expect they're going to want him to perform well. And if he doesn't, then I'm curious of what they're going to do, because there's rumors that they got to nominate him before the Democrat convention because of the issue. I believe it's Ohio. I forget what state it is, but it's one of the states that on the eastern side of the country that has an issue with the convention is a week after they got to have something to do with the ballot. I'm speaking out of term here because I don't know the whole issue there. But I'm told that they may have to have the nomination beforehand. So if they have the nomination beforehand, they can't go to the convention and release the delegates based on the health of the president of the United States. And if they release the delegates, and this is why I say 50-50, if you actually are in the convention and you release the delegates, you don't know what you're going to get, because most delegates are the activists in the party. So they're going to lean in the Republican side more to the right. And in the Democrat side, they're going to lean more to the left, and the left isn't going to help them. They nominate somebody like Michelle Obama or Gavin Newsom or Buttigieg or even Harris. That doesn't help them with the election. They actually have worse polling numbers than Biden does. So then they're going to have someone that's perceived, if there's if that even happens in the Democrat Party anymore, that's perceived more moderate. And I don't know if they can actually do that at the convention, but I do believe that they're looking for an alternative. I just don't know if they can get it done.
So the scenario that you just described as a 50-50 proposition is to release the delegates at the convention after, in this scenario, we're playing out the gamesmanship here, a poor debate performance by Joe Biden. The numbers continue to bleed. Once those delegates are released, though, your point is you have activists on the floor at the convention, and they're going to have the menu of options you just laid out for us, all of which you tell me are further to the left and poll worse than Joe Biden. But that leaves me one more sort of on this strategy, wondering, you don't move from A unless you understand what will be B. And this mystery that you described, I think, is accurate. I don't think they know where they would go. And without answering what is B, you can't really leave behind A.
I think they do. I think they know where they want to go. I just don't know if they can get there. And who I think that is, I think it's Hakeem Jeffries. If you think about Hakeem Jeffries being the leader of the House right now for the minority, Hakeem, and I'll just go back to this again, Will, I'm chasing rabbits here with you, but why did Hakeem give Kevin McCarthy the gavel? That wasn't his gavel. He never had the gavel. That gavel technically belonged to Nancy Pelosi. And why, when they handed it to him, he did a 15-minute campaign speech. And then since he's been leader, how many pictures have you seen him with President Biden? None. He's not ever at the White House. He's not meeting with President Biden. He's taken several positions away from the White House, which I served with Hakeem. That's not natural for Hakeem. Hakeem he's not moderate. He's actually very liberal, but he's likable. And right. you can be in a room with him and you can actually like the guy. Like, I got along with him. He's actually pretty funny, but he's not a conservative. He's not moderate at all. But he's taken the position completely opposite on the woke movement, on the anti-Israel movement, the pro-Palestine movement. He's taken completely different positions from the White House on that. And then he saved Speaker Johnson's bacon, which I would say if he didn't step in on that, there would have been, I would say we probably still wouldn't have a speaker. There's a good chance we still wouldn't have the speaker. And so then when you start breaking down the legislation that he's partnered with, it's showing himself as a moderate. Pelosi would never have worked with us, and Hakeem was no different. Hakeem wouldn't have worked with us. He never worked with us a single time when he wasn't in leadership. So I think they're trying to paint him as somebody that they can bring in, and he's the Obama quest type individual that he's kind of easy on the eyes. He's likable. You want to sit down and have a drink with the guy, and he's personable, even more personable than I would say that Obama was. So I believe that's probably where they would like to go. I just don't think they can get there.
Wow. What and I understand that you took the time to walk down the road of your flat earth theory, but what a series of events, informed speculation, I would say, understanding the machinations behind the scenes and the personalities of these people, of a 50-50 proposition of moving on from Joe Biden and potentially trying to get to Hakeem Jeffries. Wow. Those are things I'm not sure many people are considering at this point, Senator.
Well, keep in mind, I'm just a country boy from Westville, Oklahoma. That's, I don't know what I know, right? I mean, I grew up in a town called Westville because it's farthest east in Oklahoma. How do you get the name Westville? So that'll tell you how much I know. But I'm just reading the tea leaves, if you would say.
Well, okay, I want to go back to this idea of immigration for just a minute then. Well, actually, before I go back to immigration, I have one more question for you on this Joe Biden issue. You talked about it. Like, you were a little bit taken aback by how well he did at the State of the Union, and people have warned against these low expectations for him going into the debate. But then you see these images of him, like you said, putting his head against the Pope and wandering around, led by Obama at a Democratic fundraiser in California. So what do you think's going on there? Like, do you think, and let's consider all the options. Do you think he is being, as what would be said by MSNBC or Karine Jean-Pierre, unfairly edited out of context by the right and having these moments, played on loop by people like me at Fox? Is it that option? Is it that he's getting up for the big moments, and for now, let's say, by any means possible? People always leap to performance-enhancing drugs, but it doesn't have to be performance-enhancing drugs of some kind. It could be, hey, President Biden got a full night's sleep last night, so he's really clicking on all cylinders. And whatever a full night's sleep means, it could mean 14 hours, right? And, which isn't ideal that a president needs 14 hours on a day-in, day-out basis to operate at his full capacity. But how do you explain the seeming variance in his performance?
Well, I don't think he can fake that all the time. I believe what they did for the State of the Union is they got him a tremendous amount of rest. They probably gave him a lot of B12 and a lot of vitamin D, and he was well rehearsed, but yet he was still quick on his feet. So I think they put him in a position that he was comfortable in. I believe if you look at his health, I mean, you saw him, at Normandy, where he was walking down and it looked like he was dragging his right side. From someone that's had strokes in my family, you recognize that pretty quick. From someone that also has Alzheimer's in your family, you recognize the look in his eyes. And anybody that's dealt with that understands that. You see him being lost. And as my wife said, it's her position. I've been married to the lady for 27 years because once again, she found me sexy in my wrestling singlet. She had to throw that one out, Will. You had to get that one. So, but she said, that's my job, right? If you're being an embarrassment, that's my job. But I'll go back to meaning that it's time to come home. She said, I'd grab you by the arm and say, honey, it's time to come home. So Jill should be doing that. But I'll go back to some of my Democrat colleagues have said is that the Bidens are, and these are friends of mine, very close friends of mine, who are not, they're publicly supportive of Biden, privately they're not, is that the Biden family is a very selfish family and that he's willing to stay there and bring the whole house down if they have to, because he's not wanting to go anywhere. You can't explain his behavior other than there's some magical drugs out there that do help people, but you can't say that he doesn't have cognitive issues. I mean, the FBI even said that, which takes me back to the fact that they gave them a medical reason to say if he's behind enough come the convention to be able to pull him for medical purposes.
I'm not kissing your butt here, but you're pretty good at connecting logical dots from, which is the whole point of like human persuasion. But yeah, from a special prosecutor to the FBI acknowledging that he has a cognitive disorder or cognitive impairment of some kind, you can't really run out on TV and go, it's actually Trump who's slipping. You're just defying every logical step. And you're interestingly taking it the next step. But why do we even know that information? Does it feed into this idea of whether or not Biden will be the nominee. By the way, don't let a guy that wore a Speedo for most of his life and then when he got to college, a little cap with ear protection, make fun of your singlet. Although I would argue it is sexier than a singlet. It's still.
I don't know. You
King
guys
Kong
are in
Bundy.
cold water. I'm not saying
look.
that's too sexy.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay, back to immigration. I disagree with a little bit of the direction you took immigration. I think it's interesting you pointed out that your analysis on when I asked you about the impact of immigration was the courting of the Latino vote. But, I'm going to set aside the ethnic or racial factions in the voting process for a moment. The issue itself, I think, plays in whether or not you're Latino or not in America, whether or not you're African-American or whether or not you're white. And that is that most polls, and this shocks everybody somehow that's on CNN, show that 60% of Americans support President Trump's idea of deporting illegal immigrants. I think you could then ask the logical question, will they stomach seeing it on their TV? But yeah, they support it in concept. I think that illegal immigration, and when you combine it with the national security threat that we've seen, 6 ISIS individuals last week, affiliated ISIS individuals who crossed the southern border were apprehended, a guy who just murdered a lady and crossed illegally 4 times, is part of this whole thing. I just wonder if this is not an issue that decides elections. And I'm also wondering if it can, in its current state, or... there was a presidential analysis center that said and this would reject your and my theory they might replace Joe Biden. The guy that's gotten every election right since 1984 said stability enables the incumbent. That's why he says it'd be so stupid to replace Biden. But unless something dramatic happens, Biden is the favorite, is the analysis. And that dramatic thing could be a war, it could be the economy, or it could be a terrorist attack. And I just wonder if illegal immigration is enough to swing an election without it being part of some bigger surprise, like the terrorist attack that it's inevitably enabling somewhere in our future.
Right. So let's break down the stability part of it. The stability is truly why incumbents win 75 to 80% of the time. That's true. But the reason why the stability is because everything in their world's going okay. No one can sit around and say that that's going okay right now, right? We have the highest credit card debt than we've had and ever recorded. You have the average American spending over $11,000 per month per year right now to just maintain the lifestyle they had before, which is why you had the credit card debt going up. So people aren't adjusting their lifestyle; they're looking for a change. They're hoping the reason why they haven't adjusted their lifestyle is because they're thinking things are going to get better. You can't sit there and look and say that it's going to get better underneath Biden. So things change. And then if you have a terrorist attack underneath Bush 43, you saw it jump, right? Because he wasn't blamed for that. There's no way we could have a terrorist attack today that wouldn't be blamed on Biden. It just can't happen. It's because everybody will tell you it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when something like this takes place. So then you go back and you start looking at immigration. Why is Trump doing so well on immigration at 60%? Because legal immigration, those that came here legally, they left a place that looks similar to what we're having happen right now inside the United States. They wanted a brighter future. They didn't want the legal immigration. They didn't want the crime in their streets. They left a third world country. What separates a third world country from a first world country? It's the lawlessness. The lawlessness that no one respects the rule of law in a third world country. No, that's why when you're driving or when you're going down the streets or when something's happened, you always got to be extremely cautious. In the United States, unless you're in the wrong neighborhood, you could feel relatively safe no matter who you were or what you look like. And so those that are legally here to able to vote, they're wanting to have stability back in the United States, with the exception of one ethnic group, and that's this activist wing from the Middle East from the Democrat Party. They want to fundamentally change the United States. They want to change it, and the way you change it to what they're wanting to change it to is from disorder, so something can come back and replace it. And that's just factual. That's not an argument. You can't argue with that. That's just the facts of the nature. And so all the other ethnic groups are saying, hey, we don't like the direction the Democrat Party has taken us. That's why they're moving towards Trump. And Trump speaks to them. He has this persona of being a tough guy, a guy that they feel like can be trust because they're attacking him. So if the government's attacking them and he's standing up to the bully government, then that must be a guy that we want to be part of.
All right, last thing I want to ask you about, and I teased it several times. I did mention like Michigan and Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Montana, and I didn't just mention them in how they play for Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. Winning the Senate, where you sit, is a very important part of this picture. Republicans, and I'm just looking at the Real Clear Politics averages, they have 47 safe states for Republicans. This is a defensive election cycle for Democrats, only 40 safe for the Democrats. And so the states that I feel like everybody's pointing to, and you can tell me, I know you're very active in this, Senator, it's not just your traditional battleground states like Pennsylvania or Ohio or Michigan or Wisconsin, but also Montana, where Tim Sheehy, former Navy SEAL, is running as well. You need 4. According to this chart, right, to get the majority in the Senate. Where do you think those are most likely to come from, those 4?
So to get 52, we need 2 to get to 50, 53 to get to 51. So you have West Virginia locked. Governor Justice, that's there. I would be your second win is Tim Sheehy in Montana. Donald Trump's up by 22 points up there. Tim Sheehy is now even with Tester. There is no way, and actually some polls have him ahead of Tester by 2. In fact, Democrats have actually moved that to a more of a red than a purple state. And it's very hard for Tester to come over 22 points. I mean, that's very, very difficult. And he's never been on the ballot with Trump, so he's not been tested there. So I believe that puts us at a 50-50. And then number 3, you could put either Governor Hogan in Maryland, who is still up by 10 points. He's quit. He was taking on some water there for a little bit. He dropped from 16 to 10. Yeah, that's absolutely stopped now. He's stabilized. He's still holding at 10%. And then you have Bernie Moreno in Ohio. That is just killing it. And now, mind you, Trump's also up by 2 points. Or 17 points in Ohio. Bernie Moreno is now level with Sherrod Brown. So they're also level at this point, which isn't a good point for an incumbent. So I feel like right there between those 4, we're at 51 or 52 really easy. And then you haven't talked about what's happened with Mike Turner in Michigan or Dave McCormick in Pennsylvania. You haven't talked about New Mexico. What is her name? Neely D'Amici. Neely D'Amici. Her father was a senator from there for a long time. Very popular guy, Pete D'Amici. And so, and that's before you get into Sam Brown, who I'm going to be with in Oklahoma on Thursday in Nevada, and he's doing remarkably well. I mean, this guy is just, if you haven't had him on, Will, you should have him on. He's just talking about a war hero.
Oh yeah,
him and Tim Sheehy both are war heroes, but Sam Brown is just.
I know who you're talking about. He's got the burn.
Yeah, he got burned over 80% of his body in Afghanistan. Met his wife in San Antonio at the burn center, and she's just no nonsense. Don't give me excuses, show me results, but I still love you type personality. And you're scared of her, but you don't want to disappoint her. That's a power couple. You have Carrie Lake, who I think has probably got the most difficult road out of everybody I'd literally named there. I think she has the most difficult road in Arizona, and the reason why I say that is because the last person to get over 50% in Arizona as a Republican was John McCain, and he did that on his second to last election. So his last election, he only got 49%. That's where that third party candidate plays a big role in this. And I believe if Kyrsten Sinema would have stayed there, Carrie Lake would have had an easy road there. I think Carrie Lake can get 45% all day. I think her hard number is 48%. Now, what plays a role in Arizona is the border. That is becoming a bigger issue every day in let's say Phoenix, where that's a strong Republican held area. And then you go to Scottsdale too, which is a strong Republican held area. That those 2 areas are getting more and more concerned about the border and the immigration issue. That could be a pivotal role, and you'll see how that plays out as a top of the ticket. So if Donald Trump wins Arizona, Carrie Lake wins Arizona. So it's
that's back to that issue.
That's a quick breakdown of them. I could dive deep, but I've been to these states. I've campaigned with these individuals. I've had them in New York. Or I've had them in Oklahoma or in DC doing events for them. And I'll be on the road going to all these states too come October.
Senator, I've always been attracted to the frontier. Like, I like books about the frontier. I like TV shows about the frontier. I like to be on the edge of things, like the perception that on the other side of whatever this edge is, it's wild, Like, I like the ocean. I like the beach because it's like an endless possibility of adventure right there on the ocean. Well, my dream property is right on the Red River. I want to be right on the south side of the Red River, looking out into the wild frontier that is Oklahoma, that untamed land that one day I may go conquer. I may just decide to take my horse across the shallow Red River and go up there and plant a flag for Texas. But until then, I feel good that it's in your hands, in Washington.
I would caution that.
It's still Indian territory.
You don't do very good on football, so I'm just saying.
I feel good about the future, though. That's the point. In football and in conquering Oklahoma. I grew up where the bathroom stalls at the bar had graffiti that said the Border Patrol's on the wrong border. So... and once you get off this call, I'm going to explain... I'm going to explain to my producers exactly what Eastern Oklahoma is like. And as soon as you're gone, though, as soon as you and your singlet ride off into the sunset here and can't wrestle me and cause any damage. Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, great to have you on the show. Really fit into this vibe exactly perfectly. Serious but fun. Thank you so much, Senator.
Appreciate it. Talk to you later. Bye.